Hello, I'm Kads, and welcome to today's video. So we have once again come to the end of another rotation of the cursed city of Sintranos. So let's talk about how far I was able to get in rotation 17. Now, spoiler alert, this was one of my best performances yet, and as you can see here with the quest summary, where we completed 99 out of 101 stages. I think my previous best was 98 on obviously a completely different set of rooms or stages, but nonetheless, we're getting closer to the potential first ever hard mode clear. So yeah, stay tuned, I guess in the future, maybe as we develop our champions, develop my account more and more, that might become a reality one day. But it's not something I'm kind of breaking the bank over, so it's not that big of a deal at the end of the day. But I'm getting a bit ahead of myself here. So what I normally like to do in these videos is just mention that I am endgame despite being free to play. So that does mean that completing the entirety of normal mode is relatively easy for me to do, just because there's a lot less restrictions. I do have a lot of champions, more specifically a lot of champions built in various different ways that can complete a lot of these stages. So normal mode here, as you can see by the quests, completely finished, including Amius. And then on hard mode, I can basically always complete the lower three difficulties or areas, so to speak. Dead Rise, that being Cobble Market and Plague Home, and then I make it as far as I possibly can into Soul Cross on hard, and then also completing Amius on hard. So as per usual, let's dive into each of the Soul Cross hard stages, and I'll give you a quick summary of the team that I used in order to beat each stage, and then we'll talk about the remaining two, what the struggles were, what the hard parts of them were, and whether or not it might be feasible in the near term. So let's start things off with stage 1. This is Force Attack, and you can see here good combination of some epics, lots of epics, 3 epics, and then a couple of legendaries, one being an old fusion. But bombs from Nishak are the main source of damage, and then we have the stun set on Basilisk, Shatterbones with some like turn meter control. Fushan does a little bit of damage, and then Ziichi here does some damage as well, single target, but nonetheless decent DPS. Kind of along a similar line here, except that they're spirit and attack, different factions, I guess. But we have a decent amount of legendaries, but essentially just a bunch of nukers. And the main thing is that we have a CC combination between Mashald and Luria, so the freeze and the true fears gets us through the waves, and then all the DPS is the DPS for the waves. Stage 3 here, basically the same as stage 1 with the slight tweak. I think Errol comes in instead of whoever else was in that 5th slot, but we still have Nishak, we still have Basilisk, we still have Fushan, and then we still have Ziichi. Moving right along to stage 4, we have Vlad being our primary control with some DPS. Slixus coming into the mix, recently built champion, but not specifically for the Cursed City, but just he's just built, so I threw him in the team. Lydia, primary debuffer, Vizix, backup CC, and then Mithrala, kind of the buff champion for the squad. A little bit of CC, I guess, with the petrification, but mostly just increased attack for the 2 nukers. For the first boss stage here, we have my super fun Iron Twins team that's not really focused on trying to be efficient or anything, but just kind of killing it quickly. But poisons, decrease accuracy from Anax, does a little bit of damage over the course of the fight, but primarily it's just Rotos being Rotos, doing Rotos things, and then Sify reviving if and when he dies. S6, this can be one that starts to trip up people. This happens to be one of the easier versions in my opinion, but Morrigan for speed, Ugo debuffer, Gizmak for damage, Rotos for damage, and then Lauren the Cutter for damage. But even if you don't have, these two guys, Gorgrab can be, reviver duo healer with Ugo, like a Siege Hulk, Dark Elhain can come in there. So you can fill it with a bunch of nukers and some survivability, and you should be able to get through that relatively easily. Stage 7 here is kind of a similar concept there, but we have Gorgrab, we have Dark Elhain, we have base Elhain, and then we have Tyrell as our debuffer, and then our control here with Skiramis. So Skiramis, really underrated potentially for Cursed City, but AoE provoke that is affinity friendly, really strong for that. But if you don't have him, then obviously we're all guaranteed to get Archmage Helmet eventually with the AoE stun potential in his kit, so he can work pretty well for that one. And then stage 8, sometimes also a bottleneck, but this one we got to use Carnage, who obviously you get from the Cursed City itself, but unless he is useful in the Cursed City himself, the block passive, block active, debuff spread combo is very, very solid control if you can get it off. But yeah, we're pairing him with Dur the Hunger, Reviver Healer for the team, and then DPS with Yaniko, you get from the Clan Shop, Epic and Jingle Hunter, and then debuffer and Stagnite who is an epic as well. Stage 23. This one took a while to do, mainly because of the awakening restrictions. I do have a lot of champions that can do this stage relatively easily in terms of the enemy combatants, but having the right amount of stars to actually start the stage is really where it becomes difficult. So this was the team I settled on here, and I had to make one tweak. I think I had Jareg before in this slot, and he just wasn't really doing all that much, so I put in Maruka instead. The like spot cleanse and heal was kind of coming in clutch. Frolny is our primary DPS. Vrask is our primary healer. We're just spamming his A1 whenever he gets a chance. Rockbreaker, AoE provoke, and notably also in a frost set. So when the provoke targets attack him, they have a chance to get frozen. And then the big change that I made was rebuilding my Samson here, who's unbooked, but I rebuilt him into the provoke set. So kind of not a stun set, just because I have a lot of stun sets on a lot of different champions and barely anyone who's in provoke. So I built him in like a DPS HP based provoke set, and that actually ended up working very well, just because it synergizes with his passive, where when he gets attacked, he has a chance to run in there, counterattack, and smack you with the A1, which of course can stun in his base kit, but then you add the chance of the provoke set as well, so he could kind of keep people either locked in provoke because he would just counterattack, provoke, etc. in that loop, or sometimes he would just stun them as well. So that worked out very well. But yeah, this is just one of those difficult things where, like, if you have the right champions with the right amount of awakening, and then these stages can be relatively easy, but it can be a struggle, as this one was, if you just don't have the best champions on your account at your disposal to use for these particular stages. Moving on to Sand Devil here. This is basically one of the comps I've used many times, but Pythion is positive affinity relative to the boss, so he can never get crit, and so basically he just face tanks the big nuke from the boss. Everyone else dies, he picks them back up, and then we have Ugo placing debuffs, Gizmak placing debuffs, Stock the Broken placing debuffs, and then Fenax trying to do DPS. Obviously Stock and Fenax are negative affinity here, but you know, whenever they don't weak hit, they do stuff, and whenever they do, we just wait for the next cycle for them to come back around and do something useful. But essentially Python never dies, so that's the strategy, air quotes there. Moving right along, stage 10, we have some control here with Basher, just locking him out. We have Angar in there being a provoke. We have a taunting set or a provoke set as well on Coronar, so kind of dual team of provoking, and then Akemptum is DPS as alongside Gembo. But you have a lot of options here for DPS. You could use Tulak the Wanderer as well. You can use Frenzy the Cackler, who's kind of DPS stroke control, because she also has an AoE provoke. So lots of options for that stage. Stage 11, this one's pretty straightforward. Rectored Wrath is in the mix. Doom Priest is great for the cleansing on every turn. Mordecai is in there for HP burn, which is a really good way to deal with another spider on your minions. And then for my team, in this case, I just threw in Glacea because she has a chance to freeze, so we can freeze the Bommel, or we can freeze the minions. So if I wanted to attack them, I could, but in this case, I don't really need to. And then I just threw Wixwell in on top of that because the shield is another way to protect us from the poison. So you can see here, we don't really have much in terms of cleansing. Obviously, Doom Priest can do it a little bit, but we still take a lot of the poisons and whatnot. But just having the Wixwell shield just eats a lot of the poison damage on behalf of the team. So that is what we used for that stage. S12. This is the debut of Lord Entertainer Fabian in the Cursed City. I'm hoping that he does come into many other iterations of stages, but he made this one very easy. Obviously, we can just completely lock them out with the increasing their cooldowns, and then the True Fears, Petrification, etc. So he kind of just primarily the CC for the squad, and then back up in case we needed it. Rockbreaker again, AoE provoke, and the Frost set. Newt DPS, Morag Bronzelock DPS, and then Kyoku was protecting us if need be, but she really didn't have to do all that much. Fabian kind of took over the waves, which is pretty cool that Fusions get some play in the Cursed City. Stage 13 here. Not much to say here, but Gaius with his bombs and the sleep, a little bit of CC, a little bit of damage from that. Foley can AoE nuker, block revive. Rhodos is Rhodos. Kale is in a stun set, and Judge is also in a stun set, but you have a lot of other options here. You can also use Dark Kale, some poisons, decrease attack if you're worried about taking damage, specifically from like the Mashald and other stuff. And then Dark Alhain can also work as well for that stage. Now, S14 was, oh my goodness, what a struggle this one was to beat. This is one of the more and most annoying ones because you have Cupidus, or double Cupidus Venus on wave 1, and you just get counterattacked into oblivion. And of course, your negative affinity against that, and so you just weak hit like crazy on the Cupidi, and you're just getting bashed and bashed and bashed, and it was just... I don't know exactly how long it took, like in aggregate, but I want to say somewhere around 6 or 7 hours combined of attempts to try and beat this stage. And eventually we got the RNG, the stars to align on top of getting the right team comp. I tried so many iterations of this, but I'm not going to bore you with all the iterations, but this is the one I settled on. So we have Seneschal in there because he has an AoE provoke, kind of like Skiramis, just he places it so it's affinity friendly. Rectored Wrath is our healer, reviver for the squad. And then we have a stun set here on Oathbound AoE, decrease attack as well, helping reduce the damage from Cupidi in wave 1, but also later on in the stages. Then we have Mistrider Dahi here, primary debuffer for the squad, but also stroke DPS. Of course, you can see he's +4 empowered, and then he also happens to be 5-star awakening. Although I think I got the 5-star after I completed the stage, so that didn't really affect the success of this particular run. And then Lady Aresh, somewhat underrated, but really solid epic nuker. So she's just built as a nuker for the squad and just helps us deal damage quickly to the waves when possible. So yeah, many hours to make that work. Lots of different options that you could use: Thylesia, Bowsmith Flannan, Senesha, Sir Artemage, and Dudan the Runic. Whatever might happen to work for you, you're just going to need a lot of RNG on your side to pull that one off, unfortunately. Did I skip one? S15? Where's S15? Is this S15? No, S15. Oh, okay. Well, we'll just keep going this way. S16 here. Narcisse, Solus kind of carried it. Lydia debuffer, Mithrala buffer, and then a Skull Crown doing some more damage. Lots of options there. Void Affinity, depending on who you have, of course, but not the hardest stage. S25, this one is a lot of supports, but essentially we have Lady Mikage, primary control champion here in Form 2 with the stuns, and then Deacon, turn meter control, Rector healing as needed, and then Poison with Theodore and Battle. That's what I used. There's lots of options here. Obviously, all of us could use Fabian if you did the fusion, you have a soul. He helps you qualify very easily. 5 stars, very powerful for qualifying for these stages. So there's a lot of options for getting started with this stage, and this is like the Titan event from last year. Lady Mikage, the 4-star soul. So all those little things, they do actually help, which is kind of part of the reason why I decided to go for Udex Artor's 5-star soul, even though I don't exactly intend to use him, but maybe he might be useful in the Cursed City, so or in some awakened stage in the future. So maybe that might help me qualify with the 5-star on him, but we'll see if that comes to pass. Next, we'll move on to hard mode Fire Knight here, and essentially we have a decent amount of epics plus Arbiter helping keep the team alive and also keep them running and moving forward. So we have a couple of Phantom Touches to try and get as many pips into the shield as possible. And then more importantly, Neldor has the freeze chance on his A1 plus his passive, where whenever someone else freezes, he can join in on the attack. Cryoden, of course, one of the best hard mode Fire Knight epics in the game as well, with the freezes and the turn meter filling. Then Ruella triple hitter on the A1, also our primary debuffer, placing decreased speed is very important. Royal Guard, enemy max HP slams, plus the quad hitter, as well as the chance to place decreased speed. And then, like I said, Arbiter keeps the team running and alive. So that's the team that worked for stage 17. Stage 15. This one took a little bit of thought in order to come up with a team that would actually work, but this is the one that eventually came to pass here. So the strategy here being Catacomb Counselor, who was one of the new built champions. And shout out to someone from the stream on YouTube who actually pointed it out to me when I was iterating on it was the day where we beat stage 14 live on stream. If you do want to check those out, guys, they are on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. on YouTube and or my Twitch channel, which is linked in the description box down below. And if you do happen to miss them live, the VODs are stored on YouTube forever, so you can always go there watch them after the fact. But anyways, after we did S14, I moved on to this one and I started to iterate and eventually settled on this team. So ally attack potential from Catacomb Counselor. Rhodos is in there because we're just skipping the whole HP burn aspect of the Frost Spider. He just builds up enough stolen HP, and then his A3 can block revive on the Spider. Vogoth, triple hitter on the A1, but notably he's in Miracle Heal, so if and when the Fire Knight hits us, he can heal back a lot of the destroyed max HP that the tainted version of Fire Knight does. And then Ramontu has a quad hitter, which helps us break the shield. Notably, again, decrease speed, kind of like Cruella, same thing. Slows down the Fire Knight so that we can get back to breaking the shield down and doing damage. And then Jareg, kind of the MVP, but faultless defense on a champion with increased defense, counts as pips into the shield. So it's effectively a reflect damage stacks. And so that helped us break the shield after we killed the Frost Spider. So the primary focus was killing the Frost Spider, blocking the revive with the Rhodos, and then faultless defense to help break the shield, ally attack to also help break the shield. So that's how we got stage 15 completed. Moving right along to the tail end, we have stage 18. This team is the one that I've run a few times now. This one still takes a few like good RNG runs to really get through it, but after like a couple of iterations, I kind of know how to do this one. But nonetheless, Skaramis coming back in there, MVP. He's built high accuracy, high resistance. That's I think the best way to do it, so that he can resist stuff when he provokes them, because they will attack him instead. Then we have the stun potential from Miscreated Monster, debuffer in Tyrell, stun set on Elhain, and then just nuking gear on Royal Guard. And then coming to the last set of stages, stage 21, we got to use the lovely couple of Sir Nick and Lady Noelle. So a little bit of irresistible freezes, a little bit of DPS from Ethelyn the Golden, DPS from Shamael, and then turn meter, revive, etc. from Arbiter. So not much difficulty there, but we got to use Lady Noelle for the first time in terms of PvE content, on my account at least. And then S24, Fabian coming in, Armand's coming in. Again, that kind of made it pretty much on lock in terms of CC. The waves are completely controlled. And then we brought in Ugo, Theodora again for poisons, and then Frolny just for fun, for damage. But once again, this is an awakened stage, so depending on the star awakening levels you have, your composition will vary greatly. But I think the main thing to point out for most people is that you do have access to Fabian, you have access to Armands, and a lot of us will have access to Loki as well in terms of the 5-star blessings that were up for grabs. So that right there is 15 stars out of 20, so that could be a very strong core as far as starting and completing the stage. And they all do a decent amount of CC, which helps you beat said stage. Then lastly, we have stage 22 here with Hellraiser and Dark Fae. And this team, I was just kind of having fun with it. I've beat this in the past, but I just wanted to see what Mezamel could do, and it was just super fun. But Bashir locks him out. Gizmak does some damage, weakens some bombs from Nishak, but also they turn into poisons, which is good for the dragon specifically, but also helps against Dark Fae. Shamael was meant to be there as far as our anti-True Fear champion, but he ended up dying to mirror copy Mezamel, who I guess I forgot that she has reaction on, so she didn't actually die from the initial attack from my Mezamel, and then she killed Shamael, so he didn't really do anything. But the idea was that he's in there to prevent us from getting True Feared when she banishes someone. But yeah, that it is it for the successful stages. Now let's talk about the unsuccessful stages, S19 and S20. We'll start off with S20 just because it's a little bit more painful. But this is one of the stages I hate the most because it's such an annoying wave one. I'm not going to do it, obviously, here. But it is War Chief, Double Coronar, Snick Track, and Bambus. And it's just really annoying because they're super tanky. They're all like high HP, high defense, etc. Really annoying. But Bambus, you can't sleep him because of his passive. He loves sleep, and he like starts stealing debuffs and doing a bunch of crazy stuff. And obviously he places decreased accuracy, which can be very debilitating. You can't place your debuffs, which means you're basically screwed, and then you get provoked and killed by everybody else. But yeah, Snake Track like heals and puts up a shield. Then War Chief's reworked passive is like Brogni, so when you hit them with the shield on, then they start healing themselves. And then War Chief with the buff, now he's like one of the best AoE provokers in the game, and it's just like if they get a turn, you get killed more or less. So it's is very, very painful. I just don't have the champions built well enough to actually handle it. But this is what I was attempting to do. Debuffer with Duck, a little bit of CC from Allure with the AoE, decrease defense / sleep. Ultimate Gaelic trying to be some form of DPS, Old Hermit Jorg, Reviver, increased attack, and then a little bit of CC from Archmage Helmet with the AoE stun. But I think I made it past wave 1 like one time, and then we just got murdered on wave 2 immediately. So yeah, it wasn't working, and I don't know, I might need more help or more thought to go into like the team comp and the gearing and stuff to really pull that off. But yeah, last we have stage 19, which of course is the infamous Taurus and Marichka wave 1 that and then goes into I think like Basatha and something else on wave 2, which can be really annoying, especially for this iteration where it's Spirit Affinity. But lots of testing went on once again on the stream, and shout out once again to the viewers who pointed out that there's a lot of people just talking about what they used to beat it, the few that did. And Great Hoof Loriaka, one of the worst fusions of I think last year, that I was one of the people saying that, but even, despite having done the fusion. But after her buff, she is honestly a little bit better than I thought. And rereading her kit for the purpose of this stage, it proves that she might actually be useful. So she's not here because she's in the portal of the unsummoned for me. But I think my main takeaway was that even unbooked, she is uniquely suited to help with this stage because decreased accuracy reduces the accuracy, of course, of the enemy Tauruses, meaning that you're less likely to get stunned. And then she also has block debuffs in her kit, so even if when they counterattack, you don't get stunned. So I will be summoning her soon, probably during the fusion, this upcoming fusion, and saving her for some future iteration of the stage. But yeah, this is kind of where things were starting to get going a little bit, but there's going to be a lot more future iteration on this particular version of the stage. But nonetheless, it's a lot more promising than usual, because a lot of the times I look at S19 and I'm just like, can't beat it. Why bother? It's Taurus Marichka. But this one, thanks to the help of my lovely viewers, it does feel possible. Specifically with Great Hoof kind of making the team run, and then trying some other people in the team to see how they work. But at this stage, couldn't beat it, or this moment in time, I couldn't beat it. But I think it's possible. So I've yet to beat any iteration of S19. So this one is kind of somewhat promising. So I'm hoping to come back to that one in the future. So lastly, let me talk about my teams for Amius on this rotation, starting off with the hard version. This is a pretty bare bones team in terms of dealing with Amius. You kind of have everything you'd like. We have a cleanser for the Form 1 stuns. We have 2 revivers just in case, one can be enough, but I do like to run 2 revivers just in case of people dying on Form 2. We have a healer, Wither the Crowned. She just does healing usually on Form 2. We have a Brimstone champion / DPS champion. In this case, I'm just running Drexthar. Whenever it gets attacked, puts out the burn, and then the Brimstone can also help proc and deal damage to the boss. And then the last slot here, of course, is our heal reduction champion, which I'm using Hellborn Sprite. So for those who don't know, on the A2 triple hitter here with a chance to place 100% heal reduction, so she can do that job. She's squishy. She's usually the target in Form 2, and then that's of course why we have the 2 revivers to pick her up if and when she dies. And yeah, so that's the team that I did on, or used on hard mode, and then on normal mode, different rotation. But mostly I was just having fun because it's normal mode, so I take it a little bit less seriously. But kind of the same concept here. We have our healer, cleanser, reviver, and Pythion. Secondary cleanser with Mithrala, protecting our Venomage, who's our heal reduction champion in Form 2. We have our Brimstone champion once again, but also kind of a buff bait champion for when he's transforming from Form 1 to Form 2. And then I just threw Mezamel in once again because she's one of my favorite champions, favorite mythical champions in the game. And despite him forcing her to change forms constantly, it was just kind of fun to use her as like a real DPS single target, AoE, and whatever. But yeah, having a little bit of fun. But this slot could be just any generic DPS, any normal, non-mythical DPS. So now let's take a quick look at some of the champions that were built for the Cursed City in this, or for this rotation. So we have a handful of champions that were freshly built, meaning that they were recently obtained or just recently built and maxed up for the purpose of completing some stage in the Cursed City. And then we have a couple that were just rebuilt champions who I've used before, but I changed their gear around to beat or just to improve them relative to what I needed for certain stages. So let's start with the freshly built category, and I kind of mentioned a handful of them when we were going through each of the stages, but the first one to talk about is Oathbound, and I heard he was useful in the Cursed City many times, and I just didn't, well, I don't want to say I didn't believe people when they said he was useful, but I just didn't really see what stage he was going to be useful in. But yeah, going against the Cupidi army, he was very good, or very handy, even though he could weak hit, but just having decreased attack on them reduces the damage they could put out there, which is really strong. And as we can see here, he's in a stun set with perception, so AoE attack on the A2, but also he has a 4-time hitter at random, which I wish it was just an AoE, but nonetheless, you know, as you get less and less targets, this becomes more of a single hitter attack or a single target attack, and so you just have more chances to place the stun from the stun set, which is pretty neat. But yeah, total stats here on him: 50,000 on the HP, 3,700 on the defense, 243 on the speed. So just kind of speed, accuracy is what we're building for. 346 on the accuracy, nothing fancy. But Cursed City champion, he is booked. He's an epic. No masteries, don't really care about that. And yeah, he did his job. He served us well, or served me well for that purpose. Next up, we have Seneschal here, another champion, again with the provoking in the kit on the A3 specifically here, and I really am enjoying running a lot of these Cursed City specific provokers in the Frost set. So a 20% chance to place a freeze on the attacker when they're attacked, which they're going to be because they're provoking. So super useful synergy there. Total stats on him: 60,000 on the HP, 4k on the defense, 222 on the speed, 348 on the accuracy. I generally target around 350 accuracy, so you kind of see that across the board for all of these types of champions. Sinistral had basically the same story as Oathbound, where I heard that he was somewhat useful in some stages, but I hadn't seen which stages he was going to be useful for until we got to S14 of this iteration, so he came in clutch there as well. Same logic, he is booked, he's an epic, course, and then no masteries because he's only built specifically for S14, that one stage. After that, we have Catacomb Counselor, who came in clutch for that Fire Knight Frost Spider combo here. I built him in a Relentless set, and it's kind of just like leftover pieces of Relentless, so it's not my best pieces at all whatsoever, but just completed the set, and I built him with some speed and a little bit of resistance. So I guess total stats here: for 38,000 on the HP, 2,700 defense, 221 speed, 425 on the resistance. The idea here being that I didn't want him to get frozen or a decreased speed on him or whatever from the Frostbiter and or Fire Knight, so that he was free to do the ally attack here as much as possible. You know, of course, synergizing with the Relentless set, so we can reduce the cooldown effectively of this, but also a triple hitter here, which can help us break the shield if we need to, and then, you know, Relentless giving him extra turns so we can cycle back through either of those. So that's the idea behind that build. High enough resistance for the stage at hand with the Relentless set combined. Once again, he's an epic, so he is booked, and then no masteries because Cursed City specific champion. And then lastly, for the freshly built, I think it kind of more of an honorable mention. Like I said, Slixus was not built specifically for the Cursed City. I built him for Faction Wars because my lizard men are really struggling for DPS on my account for some reason. But he's in a weird build here. I'm just running out of gears for all the nukers that I have built, like, you know, Cursed City Doom Tower style nukers. So double divine crit rate, and then 2 pieces of Merciless with 1 piece of Stone Skin. So he's just in a random mix of gear, but just trying to make sure he's crit capped and has some decent stats. But 44.4k on the attack, 238 on the speed, full crit rate, very low crit damage, but you'll note that his gear is not maxed out at all whatsoever. So his crit damage is probably somewhere in the 200 something range. Accuracy, resistance, don't really care, but I think this is, the 200 here is high enough for like Faction Wars tier accuracy in order to stun people on his A1 or something. I think he could stun, yeah. But for the most part, he's just like an AoE nuker here and then a single target nuker there, so I don't really care too much about his accuracy. Of course, no masteries because Cursed City Faction Wars style champion, and he is booked because, of course, he is an epic. Now, in terms of the 2 champions that I rebuilt for the completing of these stages, so we talked about or hinted at Samson a little bit earlier, but he is in a provoke set here with perception, some pinpoint as well. So kind of a little low on the accuracy, but that is because the banner is not fully maxed out, and I think I'm also like missing some glyphs in the gear, but somewhere like 330-ish I believe is where this effectively will be or is. But total stats here: 65,000 on the HP, 3k defense, 213 on the speed, full crit rate, 244 on the crit damage, and then 300-ish on the accuracy. But yeah, the taunting set definitely came in clutch. Like I said, synergizes well with his A1 here in the passive, where he has a chance to stun, and then whenever he gets attacked, and then the provoke set just comes into play with either just placing it on the A1 whenever he counterattacks, or he has a chance to provoke when he does the AoE here. But he is unbooked because he is a legendary. I do guard my legendary tomes a lot more than my epic tomes, and once again unmastered because he's just kind of a Curse City champion. I don't really use him anywhere else. And then the final champion who was tweaked for the purposes of the Cursed City is Angar. We didn't really talk about him for the waves. I guess he was in a couple of the stages, but just a rebuild here. I put him into Lifesteal and Perception because he gets, he's provoking, but he gets attacked a lot, but he has counterattack in his kit here, and so it just makes sense that he could just do a little bit of healing. Since he's built for damage, he can heal himself a little bit when he's counterattacking on the enemies, but once again unbooked on him in his kit. But usually he lands the provoke anyways, and sometimes it's for 2 turns, so he works well enough for some reason without being booked. And once again without masteries because he's a Cursed City champion. All right, so there you have it. That is going to do it for the summary of my progression into rotation 17 of the Cursed City. Once again, we made it to, this is normal mode. Once again, we made it to 99 out of 101 completed stages, which is my highest to date so far. And I'm hoping eventually to be able to beat every single stage, but I do think champion restrictions will kind of hold me back from a couple of them. But nonetheless, I do want to at least try to come up with some solution, but ideally without having to do a bunch of gear swapping. That would be my personal goal, but it doesn't really matter. I have Carnage, and I'm slowly working my way through the Cursed City, or the cursed chests here, so I would like to get his awakening, Carnage's awakening, sooner rather than later, but it's not the end of the world to kind of slowly get there just by doing what I can every single rotation. Be sure to let me know in the comment section down below how far you made it in this rotation of the Cursed City, and also share what the most painful stage for you to complete was during this rotation. For me, definitely S14 takes the cake. As far as the ones that I was able to complete, definitely was the most painful in this iteration. As always, if you did find this video helpful, then be sure to hit the like button down below. It really does help out the channel, and feel free to hit the subscribe button down below as well if you're enjoying the content overall on this channel for more content just like this one in the future. Thanks for watching, and have a good one.